I thought I'd been stood up, that another attempt at love had ended before it started. But when two perfectly dressed little boys walked into that park garden and said, "Our daddy's sorry he's late," my world tilted. Because their father wasn't just running late. He was Willie Cortez, the man whose name made the city's most dangerous men look over their shoulders. They weren't supposed to be there. He had no idea. And what they were about to reveal would drag me into a world where love comes with a price written in blood. Before we continue, hit that subscribe button, like this video, and drop a comment letting us know where you're watching from. Your support helps us in creating more amazing stories, and trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Now, let's jump right into the story. I checked my phone for the 9th time in 15 minutes. 6:52 p.m., 37 minutes late. I sat alone on a weathered park bench near the Garden Cafe, a paperback novel in my lap that I'd been pretending to read for the past half hour. The evening air carried the scent of closing tulips and freshly cut grass, but the romantic atmosphere only amplified my isolation. Around me, couples strolled hand in hand along the winding paths, their laughter punctuating the soft chirping of evening birds. Nearby cafe tables were filled with people leaning close over flickering candles. I was the only person sitting alone. I told myself I'd give Willie Cortez 5 more minutes. Just 5. Then I'd text Iris, my best friend who'd orchestrated this whole setup, and tell her that blind dates with mysterious entrepreneurs weren't my thing. That after 3 years of failed relationships and broken promises, maybe keeping my walls up was the smarter choice. Just one date, Iris had insisted 4 days ago, cornering me at the animal shelter where I volunteered. His name is Willie Cortez, 36, runs several businesses, and Geneva, he's different. Trust me. But trust was a currency I'd stopped spending. And sitting there watching the garden path, feeling that familiar sting of disappointment settle in my chest, trust felt like a luxury I couldn't afford. At 6:55 p.m., movement caught my eye. I looked up from my unread book, hope flickering despite myself. But it wasn't a man in his 30s. It wasn't Willie Cortez. It was 2 identical little boys. They couldn't have been more than 6 years old, with curly brown hair that caught the golden evening light and eyes that held a sharpness no child should possess, ancient wisdom wrapped in innocent faces. They wore matching navy suits, perfectly tailored, with crisp white shirts and small silk ties. Their polished shoes clicked against the stone pathway as they surveyed the garden with the intensity of soldiers on reconnaissance. And then those eyes, dark, calculating, yet somehow gentle, landed on me. Before I could process what was happening, the boys walked straight toward my bench with unwavering confidence. The taller one, by perhaps an inch, stopped directly in front of me, tilted his head with surprising formality, and asked with complete seriousness, "Are you Miss Geneva?" I closed my book slowly, my confusion evident. Yes. Yes, I am. And you are?" "I'm Gavin," the boy announced, then gestured to his brother. "This is Grant. Our daddy's sorry he's late." The world seemed to stop. These were Willie's sons. They had to be. But Iris hadn't mentioned children. Hadn't mentioned twins. Hadn't mentioned. "He had to handle something at the docks," Grant added softly, his voice gentler than his brother's, more careful. "Something important. Very important," Gavin quickly interjected, shooting his brother a warning glance. My confusion must have been written across my face because Gavin sighed, a weary, world-worn sigh that seemed impossibly mature, and sat down beside me on the bench with the ease of someone used to taking charge. He tugged his brother down on my other side, sandwiching me between them. "We should probably tell you the truth," Gavin said, folding his small hands in his lap like he was about to conduct a business negotiation. "The truth," I echoed. "Daddy doesn't know we're here," Grant whispered, guilt flickering across his delicate features. My eyes widened. "He doesn't know?" "Wait, what?" But he is sorry he's late, Gavin insisted firmly, his jaw set with determination. We know because we heard him on the phone this morning. I set my book aside completely, drawn in despite the absurdity of it all. This morning, Grant nodded, his curls bouncing. We were supposed to be eating breakfast, but we heard him in his office. Someone called about trouble with a shipment. Something going wrong. He kept saying he couldn't believe this was happening today. He said he had something really important at 6:30 at the Rosewood Park. And you two figured out that was here? I asked, a smile tugging at my lips despite everything. We're very observant, Gavin said matter-of-factly. Daddy wrote it on his calendar. He circled it twice and drew a star next to your name. Something warm flickered in my chest. A star. He was excited, Grant continued, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. He bought a new tie yesterday. Daddy never buys new ties. I couldn't help but smile. These two little boys sitting on either side of me, with their serious expressions and their careful conspiracy, had just transformed my disappointing evening into something else entirely. Something unexpected. Something that felt strangely like fate. So, I said gently, trying to make sense of this surreal situation, your dad had trouble at the docks? What kind of trouble? The twins exchanged a glance, one of those silent communications that only twins seem to master. Grant's eyes widened slightly, and Gavin gave an almost imperceptible nod. We're not supposed to talk about Daddy's work, Grant said carefully, his small voice dropping even lower. But you're worried about him, I observed, watching their faces closely. Gavin's composure cracked just a fraction. The man on the phone was yelling. We could hear him through the door. He said something about cargo being missing and someone being unreliable. Daddy said a bad word, Grant whispered, his eyes going round. He said it 3 times. And then he got really quiet, Gavin continued, his hands fidgeting with the hem of a suit jacket. That's when we got scared. Because Daddy's never quiet like that. When he's quiet, it means something's really wrong. A chill ran down my spine despite the warm evening air. Has this happened before? Sometimes, Grant admitted. Men come to the house late at night. They talk in Daddy's office with the door closed. But Daddy never lets them see us. He always makes sure we're upstairs before they come. Daddy doesn't have friends, Gavin added matter-of-factly. Just people who work for him. And people who are scared of him. The casual way he said it, people who are scared of him, made my stomach tighten. What kind of 6-year-old talked about his father that way? Are you scared of him? I asked softly. Both boys looked at me like I'd asked the most ridiculous question in the world. No, they said in unison, their voices filled with certainty. Daddy would never hurt us, Grant said firmly. He's the one who protects us. From everything. That's why we came, Gavin explained, his young face suddenly looking far too old. Because Daddy doesn't protect himself. He only protects us. My heart clenched. What do you mean? He doesn't think he deserves to be happy, Grant said quietly, his eyes glistening. He thinks he's done too many bad things. But we don't think he's bad. We think he's just sad. When Aunt Iris told us she found someone nice for Daddy to meet, someone who works with animals and helps them, Gavin said, we thought maybe you could help him too. Help him be less sad. I felt tears prick my eyes. These 2 little boys had orchestrated this entire intervention out of pure love for their father. They'd snuck away, convinced their babysitter, tracked down this location, all because they couldn't bear to see him lose what might be his one chance at happiness. He didn't send you, I said, the full weight of it sinking in. He doesn't know you're here at all. We told Mrs. Barnes, she's our babysitter, that Daddy asked us to come, Gavin confessed, guilt flashing across his features. We might have stretched the truth a little. We lied, Grant corrected, his voice small. Daddy says lying is wrong. But we thought if we could just get here, maybe. He trailed off, and I reached over to squeeze his hand. Maybe your dad wouldn't lose his chance. Both boys nodded, relief flooding their faces at my understanding. Then I guess we'd better stay right here until he comes, I said, settling back against the bench. Would you like to tell me more about him? What does he like to do when he's not working? For the next 20 minutes, the twins painted a picture of their father, a man who made elaborate pancake breakfasts on Sundays, who checked under their beds for monsters even though they were too old for that now, who sang off-key lullabies and read adventure stories with different voices for each character. But beneath every sweet detail lurked shadows. The way he always parked facing the exit. How he never sat with his back to a door. The nights they heard him pacing the hallway, unable to sleep. He's coming, Gavin suddenly announced, his posture straightening. I looked up, following his gaze down the garden path. And that's when I saw him. Willie Cortez moved through the evening crowd like a shark through water, smooth, purposeful, and impossible to ignore. He was tall, easily over 6 feet, wearing a dark charcoal suit that looked tailored to perfection. His face was striking, sharp jawline, intense dark eyes that swept the area with practiced awareness, and an expression that managed to be both controlled and barely contained. The air around us changed. I felt it immediately. A couple walking toward us suddenly veered onto a different path, without seeming to realize they'd done it. A man at a nearby cafe table looked up, met Willie's gaze, and quickly looked away, his hand trembling slightly as he reached for his coffee. People moved. Instinctively. Automatically. Creating space. Willie's eyes found his son's first, relief and anger flashing across his features in rapid succession. Then his gaze shifted to me, and for a brief moment, something vulnerable flickered in those dark eyes before his expression shuttered completely. He stopped 3 feet from the bench, his hands sliding into his pockets, in what might have been a casual gesture if not for the tension radiating from his shoulders.
Gavin.
Grant. His voice was deep, controlled, but I heard the undercurrent of barely restrained emotion. What are you doing here? Neither boy answered. They just looked at him with those identical, hopeful expressions. Willie's jaw tightened. Then he turned his attention to me, and when he spoke, his tone shifted, became almost apologetic, but cautious.
I'm sorry.
I don't know what they told you, but... They told me you were late, I interrupted, standing up from the bench and extending my hand. I'm Geneva Smith, and I think we should probably sit down and talk. Willie took my hand, his grip firm, controlled, lasting exactly 2 seconds before he released it. Professional. Distant. But I'd felt the calluses on his palms, the warmth of his skin, and something else. The barely perceptible tremor of a man holding himself together by sheer will. Miss Smith, he said, his voice carefully neutral. I apologize for my son's behavior. They shouldn't have bothered you. We'll be going now. We weren't bothering her, Gavin protested, his small face indignant. We were keeping her company, because you were late. Very late, Grant added softly, though without accusation. Just fact. Willie's jaw tightened, a muscle jumping beneath the surface. Boys. Actually, I interrupted, surprising myself. I was just thinking about getting dinner. The cafe here makes wonderful pasta. Would you join me? All of you. The twins' faces lit up like I'd offered them the world. They turned simultaneously to their father, identical expressions of desperate hope radiating from their small faces. Willie looked trapped. His dark eyes shifted from me to his sons and back again. I watched him wage an internal battle, responsibility versus desire, caution versus the pleading looks of 2 6-year-olds who clearly didn't ask for much. Please, Daddy, Grant whispered. Willie closed his eyes briefly, exhaled slowly, and when he opened them again, something in his expression had softened just a fraction. One dinner. Then we go home. The twins cheered, and despite himself, the corner of Willie's mouth twitched. Almost a smile. Not quite. We moved from the bench to one of the cafe's wrought iron tables tucked beneath a flowering trellis. Willie positioned himself with his back to the garden wall, facing the entrance, a choice I noted but didn't comment on. The boys sat on either side of him, and I took the seat across, suddenly aware of how intimate this felt despite being our first meeting. A waitress appeared, all smiles and efficiency until she got close enough to see Willie clearly. Her smile faltered just slightly, her pen hovering over her notepad. "What can I get you?" "The boys will have the chicken Alfredo," Willie said before they could answer. "And water to drink." "I'd like the carbonara," I added. "And maybe some garlic bread for the table?" "Just coffee for me," Willie said flatly. "You should eat something," I said, emboldened by the twins' presence. "You've been working all day." Something flickered in his eyes, surprise, maybe, that I'd challenge him. "I'm not hungry. Daddy never eats when he's stressed," Grant explained to me in a stage whisper.
"Which is almost always," Gavin added.
Willie shot his sons a look that would have withered lesser mortals, but they just smiled at him innocently. The waitress retreated quickly, and an uncomfortable silence settled over our table. "So," I ventured, "the boys tell me you design buildings?" "Among other things." His tone didn't invite further questions. "He keeps people safe," Grant said proudly. "That's his job." Willie's hand moved to rest on Grant's shoulder. Protective, gentle. "That's enough." "Mommy used to say Daddy was a guardian angel," Gavin said, his voice dropping to something more reverent. "She said he protected people who couldn't protect themselves." The change in Willie was immediate. His entire body went rigid, his face carefully blank, but I saw it, the flash of raw pain in his eyes before he could hide it. "Your mother sounds like she was a wonderful person," I said softly. "She was," Grant said, his small voice thick with emotion. "She made everything better. Even when she got sick, she still smiled at us every day." "She went to heaven 2 years ago," Gavin explained, as if I might not understand. "Right after we started pre-kindergarten." Willie's hand tightened on Grant's shoulder, and for a moment, I thought he might stand up and leave. Instead, he remained perfectly still, his breathing controlled, his expression a mask. But his eyes betrayed him. They held oceans of grief, carefully contained but never truly hidden. "Daddy takes care of us now," Grant continued. "He learned how to braid our hair and make our lunches and help with homework."
"He's really good at it," Gavin added.
"Even though sometimes he gets sad when he looks at Mommy's pictures." "Boys," Willie said quietly, his voice strained. "That's private." "But Miss Geneva is nice," Grant protested. "We can tell nice people things, right? That's what you taught us." Willie looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw something shift in his expression. Assessment. Calculation. And beneath it all, a desperate kind of longing that made my breath catch. The food arrived, breaking the moment. The twins dug into their pasta with enthusiasm, temporarily distracted. Willie's coffee sat untouched in front of him, steam rising in delicate spirals. We talked in careful circles, the boys chattering about school, their favorite books, the new puppy they wanted but Willie kept saying no to. I told them about the animal shelter, about the dogs and cats waiting for homes, and watched their faces light up with innocent joy. Willie remained mostly silent, his gaze constantly scanning the surroundings, but whenever he looked at his sons, his expression softened. He wiped sauce from Grant's chin with his napkin, reminded Gavin to use his fork properly, and when Gavin accidentally knocked over his water glass, Willie caught it before a single drop spilled, his reflexes impossibly fast. I was just beginning to relax when I noticed him, a man in a black coat, moving through the cafe with purpose. He wasn't dressed for an evening stroll in the park. His coat was too heavy for the weather, and his eyes swept the area with the same practiced awareness I'd seen in Willie. Willie noticed him too. He went very still, his hand moving subtly to rest on the table between his sons. Protective, ready. The man approached our table, and without a word, placed a manila envelope beside Willie's untouched coffee. Their eyes met for just a second, some silent communication passing between them, and then the man was gone, disappearing back into the evening crowd as quickly as he'd appeared. The twins seemed oblivious, still engrossed in their pasta. But I'd seen it. And Willie knew I'd seen it. "I should get you home," he said abruptly, his tone brooking no argument. He pulled out his wallet and dropped several bills on the table, far more than our meal cost. 20 minutes later, after the twins had finished eating and Willie had arranged for Mrs. Barnes to take them home, he insisted on walking me to my car. The twins waved goodbye from Mrs. Barnes's sedan, their faces pressed against the window. We walked in silence through the darkening park, the space between us charged with unspoken things. When we reached my car, Willie stopped, his hands sliding into his pockets. "Thank you," he said stiffly, "for being kind to them." "They're wonderful boys," I said honestly. "You've done an amazing job with them." Something painful crossed his face. "Miss Smith, Geneva, you seem like a good person. The kind of person who sees the best in people. Is that a bad thing? It is when those people don't deserve it." He took a step closer, and I caught the scent of his cologne, something dark and woodsy. "You're kind, but kindness can get you hurt around me. You should know that before this goes any further." My heart was racing, but I held his gaze. "Is that a warning?" "It's the truth." His voice dropped lower, more intimate despite the danger in his words. "I'm not the man your friend told you about. I'm not safe. And the world I live in," he stopped, jaw clenching. "It destroys good things." "Then why did you agree to this date?" For a long moment he didn't answer. Then, so quietly I almost didn't hear it, because for 2 minutes on the phone with Iris, I let myself believe I could be someone different. Someone who deserved this. He stepped back, the distance between us suddenly feeling like miles. "Good night, Geneva. I hope you find what you're looking for. But it's not me." He turned and walked away, his figure swallowed by the evening shadows. I stood beside my car, trembling, the taste of danger and longing mixing on my tongue. He was wrong about one thing, though. I'd already found what I was looking for, and I wasn't letting go that easily. 3 days passed, and I couldn't get them out of my head. Not just Willie, though his warning echoed through my thoughts at the strangest moments, but Gavin and Grant, their small hands gesturing as they talked. The way they'd looked at their father with such fierce, protective love. The sadness that lingered behind their bright eyes. I threw myself into work at the shelter, cleaning kennels and socializing the dogs with perhaps more intensity than necessary. But even surrounded by barking and wagging tails, my mind kept drifting back to that park bench, to dark eyes that held too many secrets, to a voice that said stay away, but sounded like please don't. On Tuesday afternoon, my phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello," I answered, tucking the phone between my ear and shoulder as I refilled water bowls. Silence. Not dead air. I could hear breathing, faint but deliberate. Someone was there, listening. "Hello," I repeated, unease prickling down my spine. The line went dead. I stared at my phone, trying to shake off the discomfort. Wrong number. Had to be. But when it happened again that evening, and then again Wednesday morning, I knew it wasn't coincidence. Someone was checking on me, watching. Thursday afternoon brought an unexpected brightness. I was in the shelter's play yard with a skittish terrier when I heard the front bell chime. Through the chain-link fence, I saw them. 2 small figures in matching windbreakers, holding something colorful between them. Gavin and Grant. My heart leaped as I secured the terrier and hurried inside. The twins stood at the reception desk, their faces lighting up when they saw me. "Miss Geneva," Grant exclaimed, bouncing on his toes. "We brought you something," Gavin announced, holding up a large piece of construction paper. I knelt down to their level, taking the drawing carefully. It showed 3 stick figures, 2 small ones on either side of a tall one with dark scribbled hair, and a 4th figure with brown crayon hair in a pink dress. Above them, a yellow sun smiled down, and at the bottom, in careful block letters, "Our family." My throat tightened. "This is beautiful. Did you draw this yourselves?" "We worked together," Grant said proudly. "I did the colors and Gavin did the words." "That's you." Gavin pointed to the pink-dressed figure. "With us." And Daddy's smiling.
See.
The tall stick figure did indeed have an upturned crescent mouth, something I suspected the real Willie Cortez rarely displayed. "Does your father know you're here?" I asked gently. Mrs. Barnes appeared from behind a display of leashes, looking slightly frazzled. "I tried to redirect them to the pet store," she explained apologetically. "But they were quite insistent." "We wanted to see Miss Geneva," Gavin said matter-of-factly. "Daddy's been sad again. We thought if we brought him the picture, he'd remember to smile. But we wanted to show you first," Grant added shyly. "So, you'd know we're thinking about you." I pulled them both into a hug, these impossibly brave little boys who were trying to heal their father's broken heart. "Thank you. This means more than you know." After Mrs. Barnes ushered them out with promises of ice cream, I taped their drawing to my office wall, right where I could see it every day. That evening, everything changed. I was locking up the shelter, the last streaks of sunset painting the sky orange and purple, when I felt it, that prickle of awareness that says you're not alone. I turned to find a man leaning against a black SUV parked across the street. He wasn't trying to hide. His arms were crossed, his gaze fixed directly on me. Even from a distance, I could see the bulge of something beneath his jacket. Something weapon-shaped. My hand tightened on my keys, but I forced myself to walk normally to my car.
Don't run.
Don't show fear. He pushed off the SUV and crossed the street, his movements casual but purposeful. Up close, he was younger than I'd expected, maybe 30, with a scar cutting through his left eyebrow. "Geneva Smith?" His voice was rough, direct. "Who's asking?" "Someone who's looking out for the boss's interests." He stepped closer, and I caught the scent of cigarettes and leather. "You seem like a nice lady. Good job, help animals clean record. So I'm going to give you some friendly advice. Stay away from Willie Cortez and his kids." "Is that a threat?" "It's a warning. The world he lives in, it's got teeth.
It bites.
And it doesn't care how nice you are." His eyes weren't cruel, just tired. "You don't want this life, Miss Smith. Trust me." "Does Willie know you're here?" Something flickered across his face. "The boss doesn't know a lot of things. That's how we keep him alive." He turned and walked back to his SUV, leaving me shaking in the parking lot. I should have gone home. Should have listened. But anger, hot and righteous, was burning through my fear. I drove to the address Iris had given me, just in case. A gated estate on the city's edge, surrounded by high walls and security cameras. I pressed the intercom button with more confidence than I felt. "Geneva Smith to see Willie Cortez. Tell him it's important." The silence stretched so long I thought I'd be turned away. Then the gates swung open. Willie met me at the door, his expression thunderous. "You shouldn't be here. Your man just threatened me in a parking lot." I shot back, brushing past him into a marble foyer that screamed money and danger. "I think we're past shouldn't." He grabbed my arm, not rough, but firm, and pulled me into what looked like a study. Dark wood, leather furniture, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. He closed the door and leaned against it, his jaw clenched. "What did Marcus say to you?" "That I should stay away." that your world has teeth. I crossed my arms. What does that mean, Willie? What exactly is your world? He was silent for a long moment, warring with himself. Then, finally, my brother built a criminal network. Shipping, distribution, protection. When he died 5 years ago, it fell to me. The words hung in the air between us, heavy as stones. You're telling me you're what? Mafia? I'm telling you I run an organization that operates outside the law. That I inherited enemies and obligations I can't escape. His voice was hollow. I was supposed to be out. I spent 2 years trying to dismantle it, trying to build something legitimate for my sons. But when you have enemies, Geneva, there's no such thing as out. The twins don't know, can never know. His eyes burned with intensity. That's why you need to leave. Why you can't come back. Because if someone wanted to hurt me, they'd go through you first. And I can't, his voice cracked. I won't let that happen. I should have been terrified. Should have run. But all I saw was a man trapped in a cage of his own making, desperate to protect the two people who mattered most. What if I don't want to leave? Then you're a fool, he whispered. But the way he looked at me said something else entirely. Maybe. I agreed, my heart pounding. But at least I'm an honest one. I left before he could respond, but I felt his eyes on me all the way to my car, burning with guilt, longing, and something that looked dangerously like hope. I lasted exactly 11 days. 11 days of ignoring texts from Iris asking how things went. 11 days of staring at the twins drawing on my office wall. 11 days of lying to myself that I could just walk away. Then Gavin and Grant showed up at the shelter again. This time they brought a shoebox turtle they'd found in their backyard and a list of questions about proper care written in careful 7-year-old handwriting. Mrs. Barnes apologized profusely, but the twins just looked at me with those impossibly hopeful eyes. Daddy said we could keep him if we learn how to take care of him properly, Grant explained, cradling the box gently. We thought you'd know. Does your father know you're here? I asked, though my resolve was already crumbling. He said we could ask the nice animal lady, Gavin replied innocently. You're the only animal lady we know. So I showed them how to set up a proper habitat, how to feed their turtle, whom they'd already named Flash, with delightful irony. And when Mrs. Barnes mentioned they had a science project due on animal habitats, I heard myself offering to help. That's how it started. Small visits that became regular ones. Tuesday afternoons turned into Thursday evenings. I'd arrive at the estate, those imposing gates less intimidating each time, and spend hours at their kitchen table helping with homework, reading stories, teaching them about the animals at the shelter. Willie kept his distance. He'd nod when I arrived, thank me quietly when I left, but he never stayed in the room long. I'd catch him watching from doorways, his expression unreadable, something between longing and fear, admiration and regret. Daddy likes when you're here, Grant confided one evening while we worked on a poster about sea turtles. He hums when he makes dinner on days you're coming. He doesn't hum anymore, except for us and you, Gavin added, carefully gluing construction paper waves to their poster. I glanced toward the kitchen where Willie was preparing dinner, his sleeves rolled up, moving with efficient grace. As if sensing my gaze, he looked up. Our eyes met across the space, and for 3 heartbeats, neither of us looked away. Then his phone buzzed. He checked it, and I watched his expression shudder completely, that mask sliding back into place. He said something to the twins about finishing up, then disappeared down the hallway, his voice low and tense as he answered a call. 3 weeks into this careful dance, everything shattered. It was a Thursday evening. The twins had just finished their project, an elaborate diorama of a coral reef ecosystem, and we were celebrating with hot chocolate in the living room. Willie had actually joined us, sitting in an armchair, while the boys showed him every detail they'd created. Miss Geneva helped us understand symbiotic relationships, Gavin explained proudly. That's when animals help each other survive. Willie's eyes found mine over the rim of his coffee cup. That sounds important. The moment stretched between us, warm and fragile, and full of unspoken things. Then the gunshots shattered the evening like glass. 3 sharp cracks from somewhere near the front gates. The twins froze, their hot chocolate forgotten. But Willie moved, impossibly fast, impossibly calm. Gavin, Grant, upstairs.
Now.
Security room. Code red. His voice was steel, absolute authority wrapped in careful control. The boys didn't argue. They ran, their small feet pounding up the stairs with practiced efficiency. This wasn't the first time they'd heard that command. Willie's hand closed around my wrist. With me. Stay low. He pulled me down behind the couch just as more shots rang out. Closer now, accompanied by shouting. Male voices barking orders. The sound of car doors slamming. Willie had his phone out, speaking rapidly. Marcus, report. How many? Contain them at the perimeter. Nobody gets through. And get the boys out through the east tunnel, if this escalates. Tunnel? I stared at him. This man I'd been having hot chocolate with 60 seconds ago, now coordinating a defense with the cold efficiency of a military commander. Stay here, he ordered, then moved toward the window with a gun I hadn't seen him draw. Where had that come from? Willie. Geneva.
Stay. Down.
More gunshots. Closer. The sound of breaking glass from somewhere in the house. My heart hammered against my ribs, fear metallic on my tongue. Then silence. Terrible, stretching silence broken only by my ragged breathing and the distant wail of approaching sirens. Willie spoke into his phone again. Status. Whatever he heard made his shoulders drop slightly. Secure the perimeter. Clean it up before the police get here. The usual story. He paused. And Marcus? Find out who sent them. He ended the call and finally turned to me. I was still crouched behind the couch, trembling, my hands pressed against the hardwood floor. Willie crossed the room and knelt beside me. Are you hurt? I shook my head, unable to speak. Look at me, Geneva. I forced my eyes to meet his. There was no mask now, just raw intensity, equal parts fierce protectiveness and deep regret. This is what I meant, he said quietly. This is the world I tried to warn you about. This is who I am. I'd seen him transform. Watched the gentle father become something else entirely, something commanding and terrifying and absolutely in control. He'd been ready to kill to protect his sons. To protect me. My hands were still shaking. He took them in his thumbs tracing gentle circles on my wrists, such a stark contrast to the violence that had just erupted. Now you've seen the part one wanted to hide, he whispered, his voice rough with emotion. I should have been horrified. Should have run. But looking at him, at this complicated, dangerous, devoted man, I realized something with crystalline clarity. I'd already made my choice. Maybe I'd made it the moment 2 little boys sat down beside me on a park bench and refused to let their father lose his chance at happiness. Then show me the rest, I whispered back. Willie's breath caught. Geneva. Show me the rest, Willie. All of it. Because I'm not running. For a long moment, he just stared at me, searching my face for uncertainty, for fear, for any sign I didn't understand what I was saying. Then, slowly, he pulled me into his arms, not romantic, not passionate, but desperate. Like a drowning man finding air. You're going to regret this, he murmured against my hair. Maybe, I admitted, my face pressed against his chest, feeling his heartbeat thunder beneath my cheek. But I'd regret leaving more. Upstairs, I could hear the twins' muffled voices, Marcus's deeper tones reassuring them. Outside, the sirens grew louder. Willie's phone buzzed with incoming messages, his world demanding his attention. But for these few stolen seconds, he held me like I was the only thing keeping him anchored to something good, something worth protecting. And I held him back, knowing I'd just crossed a line I could never uncross. The quiet storm had passed, but the real tempest? That was only beginning. The weeks that followed the shooting transformed into something I never expected, a strange, beautiful normalcy carved out of chaos. Saturday mornings became baking lessons in Willie's enormous kitchen. I'd stand at the counter with the twins, flour dusting our clothes, while Willie watched from the doorway with something soft in his eyes. Grant had a talent for perfectly cracked eggs. Gavin insisted on taste testing everything. And Willie learned to smile again. "You're adding too much vanilla," I told him one afternoon as he helped measure ingredients, standing close enough that our shoulders brushed. "The boys like it sweet," he murmured, his voice low enough that only I could hear. His hand covered mine on the measuring spoon, steadying it. The touch lasted 3 seconds, longer than necessary. Across the kitchen, Gavin and Grant exchanged knowing glances and giggled into their mixing bowl. Dinners became a ritual. The 4 of us around the table, the twins chattering about school while Willie and I traded glances over their heads, small moments of connection that felt stolen from another life. A life where he was just a man and I was just a woman falling impossibly, dangerously in love. But reality always lurked at the edges. Men in dark suits conferring in hushed tones in the hallway. Willie's phone buzzing at odd hours, his expression shuddering as he stepped away to take calls. The way he always positioned himself between me and the door, even when we were just reading bedtime stories. 2 months in, everything shifted. The twins had finally fallen asleep after 3 rounds of just one more chapter. Willie and I stood in the hallway outside their room, the house quiet around us, dim lighting casting shadows across his face. "Thank you," he said softly, "for this. For them. You don't have to thank me for caring about your sons, Willie. I'm not." He stepped closer, his dark eyes intense in the half-light. "I'm thanking you for making me remember what it feels like to want something beyond survival." We drifted downstairs to his study, the same room where he'd confessed his truth months ago. He poured 2 glasses of wine, and we settled into the leather couch, the city lights glittering beyond the windows. "Tell me about her," I said quietly. "Your wife." Willie went very still, the wine glass frozen halfway to his lips. For a moment, I thought he wouldn't answer. Then he set the glass down carefully and leaned back, his eyes distant. "Elena was light," he finally said. "Everything good I'd forgotten existed. She knew about my brother's business, knew what I'd inherited, but she believed I could be better. That love could be enough to pull me out." His voice cracked slightly on that last word. "What happened?" "I trusted the wrong person." His hands clenched into fists. Someone in my inner circle, someone I considered a friend, was feeding information to a rival organization. They wanted to send a message. So they went after the thing that mattered most. My throat tightened. "Willie." She was driving home from the boys' school. "They caused an accident." His voice was hollow, each word carefully controlled. "Made it look random. By the time I realized what had happened, she was already gone. The doctors said an aneurysm caused the crash. But I knew. I've always known. Love got her killed, Geneva." He turned to face me, his eyes burning with anguish. "That's what this world does. It takes beautiful things and destroys them. And I let it happen because I wasn't careful enough. I trusted when I should have suspected. I loved when I should have kept my distance." Tears streamed down my face. "It wasn't your fault, wasn't it?" He reached up, his thumb catching a tear on my cheek. "And now here you are. Another person I care about. Another target I've painted on someone's back." "Willie, I should end this," he whispered. "Send you away before I kissed him, cut off his words with my lips, pouring everything I felt into that moment: defiance and tenderness, fear and fierce certainty. For a heartbeat, he froze. Then his control shattered. He pulled me closer, one hand tangling in my hair, the other wrapping around my waist. The kiss deepened, desperate and aching, tasting of wine and grief, and a hunger neither of us could deny anymore. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Willie pressed his forehead against mine. "This is a mistake," he breathed. "Then we'll make it together." His laugh was broken. "You're going to destroy me, Geneva Smith. Or save you," I whispered back. We stayed like that, wrapped in each other, pretending the world outside his study didn't exist. Pretending love could be enough. We were wrong. 3 days later, it all came crashing down. I was at the estate, helping the twins with an art project, when Marcus burst through the door, his usual calm shattered, blood staining his shirt. "Boss, we got a problem. They know. Damien sold us out. Gave them everything. Locations, schedules, security protocols." Willie's face went white. "Damien. He's been feeding them information for months. They're coming. Now." I barely had time to process before Willie was moving, shouting orders. "Get Geneva and the boys to the safe room. Full lockdown. And Marcus, get me every man we have. Nobody gets through that gate." But they were already there. The explosion shook the entire mansion. Windows shattered. Alarms shrieked. And through the smoke and chaos, I heard gunfire. So much gunfire. Willie grabbed my arm, his grip iron. "The boys, where are they?" "Playroom," I gasped. We ran. The house had transformed into a war zone. Willie's men exchanging fire with invaders, bullet holes punching through expensive artwork, the acrid smell of gunpowder thick in the air. We reached the playroom. Gavin and Grant were huddled under their art table, eyes wide with terror but silent, trained for this nightmare. "Daddy." Grant's voice broke. More explosions. Closer. The ceiling light fixture crashed down, missing us by inches. Willie scooped up both boys, one in each arm. "Geneva, stay behind me. Do not stop running." We moved through the chaos, Willie's body shielding his son's, me pressed close behind. Men shouted. Guns fired. Someone screamed. Then I saw him. A man in tactical gear, weapon raised, aimed directly at Willie's exposed back. "Willie!" I screamed. He spun and the world seemed to slow. The gunshot. Willie's body jerking. His grip on the twins never loosening even as he went down. "No." I threw myself forward, covering them all with my body, waiting for the next shot. It never came. Marcus appeared like an avenging angel, taking down the shooter with lethal precision. "Boss." Marcus was there, checking Willie's shoulder where blood bloomed dark against his shirt. "The boys," Willie gasped. "Get them out. East Tunnel. Now." "I'm not leaving you," I said fiercely. His eyes met mine, pain and love and desperate command. "Geneva, please. Save them." The mansion shuddered with another explosion, and I realized with horrible clarity this was the price of loving Willie Cortez. Blood and roses, danger and devotion, and a choice I'd have to make in the space of a heartbeat. The choice was made for me. Marcus pulled Willie to his feet while I grabbed the twins, running for the East Tunnel. But in the smoke and chaos, we got separated. 1 second Grant's hand was in mine. The next I was being shoved through a doorway by one of Willie's men as gunfire erupted behind us. "Wait, the boys!" I screamed, fighting against his grip. "Safe room protocol, ma'am. Boss's orders." He locked me in Willie's panic room, reinforced steel, monitoring screens showing the carnage throughout the house. I watched helplessly as Willie, blood streaming from his shoulder, fought like a man possessed. Watched Marcus coordinate the defense. Watched the invaders finally retreat. But I didn't see the twins. 20 minutes later, the door opened. Willie stood there, his face ashen beneath the blood and soot. The look in his eyes told me everything before he spoke. They took them. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. What do you mean they took them? My voice didn't sound like my own.
Damien.
He grabbed them during the evacuation. Security footage shows him carrying them out the back. Willie's hands were shaking. This man who never showed weakness was trembling. He has my sons, Geneva. He has my sons. I'd never seen him like this. The careful control was gone, burned away by pure, primal terror. This wasn't the calculated crime lord or the gentle father. This was something raw and dangerous, a man who would burn the world down to get his children back. Then we find them, I said, forcing steel into my voice. Right now. Willie's phone rang. He answered it, and even from across the room, I could hear Damien's smug voice on speaker. They're safe.
For now.
But you know how this works, Willie. You want them back? You give me what I want. Full control of the shipping operations. The contacts. The accounts. Everything. I'll kill you. Willie's voice was quiet. Absolute. I will find you, and I will kill you. 48 hours. Damien continued as if Willie hadn't spoken. Clocks ticking. The line went dead. Willie hurled his phone across the room. It shattered against the wall. Then he drove his fist into the steel door, once, twice, blood blooming across his knuckles. Willie, stop. I should have seen it. His voice broke. He was right there. In my house. Near my sons. And I trusted him. I grabbed his bleeding hand. We don't have time for this. Where would he take them? Could be anywhere. Safe houses. Warehouses. He knows all my locations. But maybe not all of mine. An idea was forming, dangerous and desperate. You said he's involved in shipping at the docks, right? Everything moves through the docks. I know someone there. Tommy Chin. He runs the Marine Animal Rescue near Pier 19. He sees everything that happens on those docks. If Damien moved the boys through there, Tommy would know. Willie stared at me. Why would he tell you? Because I helped save his daughter's dog last year. He owes me. I was already pulling out my phone. And because some debts matter more than fear. 15 minutes later, I had an address. An abandoned fish processing plant on the north end of the docks. Tommy had seen two men carrying sleeping children into the building 3 hours ago. He'd thought it was suspicious, but didn't know who to call. Until I called him. Willie moved immediately, gathering Marcus and 6 other men. When I headed for the car, he grabbed my arm. Absolutely not. They're kids I care about too, Willie. I'm coming. Geneva. You don't have time to argue with me. I met his eyes. And you need me. If anything goes wrong, if they're hurt, my voice cracked. They trust me. Let me help. Something shifted in his expression. He nodded once, sharp and decisive. We drove in silence, Willie's intensity filling the SUV like electricity. His jaw was clenched so tight I thought his teeth might crack. Blood still seeped through the bandage on his shoulder, but he didn't seem to notice. The processing plant loomed against the night sky, dark and skeletal. Willie's men moved like shadows, surrounding the building with military precision. Marcus appeared at Willie's side, handing him a weapon. 2 guards outside. At least 3 inside. And Damien. He's mine, Willie said flatly. Then we moved. What happened next was brutal and efficient. Willie's men took down the outside guards silently. Then we were inside, the stench of old fish and rust thick in the air. I heard them before I saw them. Gavin's voice, trying to sound brave. Our daddy's going to find us. Your daddy's not coming, Damien's voice answered. Your daddy's going to give me everything he has, and then maybe. Willie exploded through the doorway. What followed was violence I'd only seen in movies, except this was real, visceral, and absolutely terrifying. Willie moved through Damien's men like death itself.
Precise.
Brutal. Unstoppable. I ran to the twins, cutting through the zip ties binding their wrists. They threw themselves into my arms, sobbing. I knew you'd come, Grant whispered. I knew Daddy would find us. Behind us, Willie had Damien pinned against a wall, his forearm pressed against the traitor's throat. Damien's face was purple, his eyes bulging. Willie. My voice cut through the rage. Don't.
He didn't look at me.
He took my sons. And they're safe now. I stood, still holding the twins close. But if you kill him, you become exactly what you're trying to escape. You told me you wanted to be better.
For them.
Prove it. The silence stretched. Willie's arm pressed harder. Damien made choking sounds. Then, slowly, Willie stepped back. You're dead in this city, he told Damien, his voice like gravel. Every organization, every contact, they'll know what you did. You'll spend the rest of your life running. And if you ever come near my family again, mercy won't find you twice. Marcus dragged Damien away. Willie turned, and when he saw his sons, alive, safe, something broke in him. He crossed the warehouse in 3 strides and dropped to his knees, pulling Gavin and Grant into his arms with a desperate, shaking intensity. I'm sorry, he whispered, his voice raw. I'm so sorry. We knew you'd come, Gavin said simply. You always come. We stayed like that, the 4 of us tangled together on the filthy warehouse floor until Willie's men quietly confirmed the building was secure. Back at the estate, now crawling with additional security, I cleaned Willie's wounds in his bathroom while the twins slept in his bed, refusing to let him out of their sight. His shoulder needed stitches. His knuckles were shredded. But he sat perfectly still, his eyes distant. I'm ending it, he said suddenly. I paused, antiseptic-soaked gauze in hand. What? All of it. The business. The network. He turned to face me, his dark eyes burning with determination. I've been telling myself I was trapped, that there was no way out. But tonight I realized I'm not trapped by the organization. I'm trapped by my own fear. Fear of what happens if I let go. Fear of losing what little power I have to protect them. Willie. But that power almost got my sons killed. That life put you in danger. His hand covered mine. I'm done, Geneva. I'm going to dismantle everything my brother built. It'll take time, and it'll be dangerous, but I'm ending it. For them. His voice dropped to a whisper. For us. Tears blurred my vision. You don't have to do this alone. I know. He pulled me closer, his forehead resting against mine. That's what I'm just now understanding. I've been alone for so long, I forgot what it felt like to have someone standing with me. Not behind me, not hiding from my choices, but with me. I kissed him then, soft and slow, tasting salt and iron and promise. When we pulled apart, his eyes held something I'd never seen before. Hope. This won't be easy, he warned. Nothing worth having ever is. Outside, dawn was breaking over the city. A new day. A new beginning. And for the first time since I'd met Willie Cortez, I believed we might actually survive this. Together. Willie left 3 days after the kidnapping. I have to clean this up properly, he told me in the pre-dawn darkness, the twins still sleeping upstairs. Dismantling an organization like this, it's not just walking away. There are deals to close, alliances to end safely, people who need to be protected or neutralized. How long? My voice was small. I don't know. He cupped my face in his hands, his thumbs tracing my cheekbones. Weeks. Maybe longer. But Geneva, I need you to promise me something. Anything. If something goes wrong, if I don't make it back, he pressed a finger to my lips when I started to protest. Listen, if I don't make it back, take care of them. The twins. There's a trust fund, legal guardianship papers. Iris has everything. Promise me. Tears streamed down my face. You're coming back. Promise me. I promise. But you're coming back, Willie. You have to. He kissed me then, deep and desperate, like he was memorizing the taste of hope. Then he was gone. The first week was agony. The twins stayed with Iris while Willie's estate underwent extensive security renovations. I threw myself into work at the shelter, but every sound made me jump. Every unknown number made my heart race. The second week, I started going to the park, to that bench where two little boys had walked into my life and changed everything. I'd sit there with a book I never read, watching the garden cafe, remembering hot chocolate and first meetings and the moment I'd looked into a dangerous man's eyes and seen only desperate longing. By the third week, it became ritual. Every Saturday afternoon, I'd sit on that bench, waiting, hoping. People probably thought I was crazy. This woman who showed up week after week, staring at nothing, occasionally wiping away tears. But I couldn't stop, because somehow being there made me feel closer to him. To all of them. Week 4 brought radio silence. Even Iris stopped hearing from Willie's lawyers. Marcus's texts became shorter, more cryptic. Still working. Boss is safe. Be patient. But patience was eroding my sanity. Week 5, I almost gave up. Almost stopped going to the park. What was the point of waiting for someone who might never come back? Then Saturday of week 6 arrived. I was sitting on the bench, autumn leaves swirling around my feet, when I heard them. Miss Geneva. I looked up, and my heart stuttered. Gavin and Grant were running down the path, their faces bright with excitement, and something else, something that looked like barely contained secrets. Boys. I stood, catching them both in a fierce hug. What are you doing here? Is everything. We have something for you, Gavin interrupted, breathless. Grant pulled a small velvet box from his jacket pocket. Navy blue, worn at the edges. He placed it carefully in my trembling hands. Daddy told us to give you this, he whispered. My fingers shook as I opened it. Inside, nestled against cream silk, was a ring. Simple, elegant, a single diamond that caught the fading sunlight and scattered it into rainbows. And beneath it, folded small, a piece of paper in Willie's distinctive handwriting. I unfolded it with numb fingers. Geneva. If I'm not late this time, it means I made it out. It means I'm free, we're free. It means I kept my promise to end this life and build something better. If I am late, if you're reading this without me there, remember that I tried. Remember that you made me believe I could be more than what I was. Remember that loving you and loving them was the first real thing I'd felt in years. I kept my promise either way. I loved you. I loved them. Tell them their daddy finally found peace. The world blurred. Tears splashed onto the paper, smudging the ink. My chest felt like it was caving in. He's not coming, I whispered. He's not. Look up, Miss Geneva, Gavin said softly. I didn't want to. Didn't want to see the empty park path. Didn't want to face the reality that Willie Cortez had fought his way out of one world, but couldn't quite make it into the next. Please, Grant added. Look up. I forced my eyes up, tears streaming freely now. And there he was. Willie stood 15 feet away, partially shadowed by an oak tree. He looked different, thinner, new scars visible on his jaw and hands. His suit was rumpled, his hair longer than before. He looked exhausted and bruised and absolutely, perfectly alive. Our eyes met, and the world stopped. I told you I'd never be late again, he said, his voice rough with emotion. A sob broke from my throat. You're here. You're really here. I'm here. He walked toward me slowly, like he was afraid I might disappear. It's done, Geneva. All of it. I'm out. The organization is dissolved, the assets liquidated or donated, the people who depended on it are taken care of. I'm free. He stopped in front of me, close enough to touch, but not quite touching. Close enough that I could see the silver scar bisecting his eyebrow, the exhaustion in his eyes, the hope trembling beneath his control. I'm just a man now, he continued quietly. No empire. No power. Just a father trying to raise two boys and build something legitimate and good. Just Willie. Just Willie is all I ever wanted, I whispered. He smiled then, that rare, genuine smile that transformed his entire face. Then, slowly, he knelt on the stone pathway in front of the bench where this all began. Gavin and Grant moved to stand beside him, one on each side, their small hands on their father's shoulders. Geneva Smith, Willie said, his voice steady despite the emotion shining in his eyes. I can't promise you an easy life. I can't promise you a safe one. My past will always cast shadows. But I can promise you honesty. I can promise you, every day I have left on this earth, I can promise you two boys who already love you like a mother. And I can promise you a man who will spend the rest of his life trying to deserve the second chance you gave him. He pulled a ring from the box. I was still clutching. Will you marry me? The setting sun painted everything gold. Willie kneeling before me, the twins watching with hopeful tears, the garden cafe behind us where two children once appeared out of nowhere and changed the course of our lives. Yes, I breathed. Yes, yes, yes. Willie slid the ring onto my finger with shaking hands. Then he stood and pulled me into his arms, lifting me off the ground as I wrapped myself around him, crying and laughing simultaneously. I kept my promise, he murmured against my hair. I came back to you. You were never late, I whispered back. You were exactly on time. Gavin and Grant crashed into us, and we became a tangle of arms and laughter and joyful tears right there on the park path. People walking by smiled at us, this strange, beautiful family celebrating something they couldn't possibly understand. But we understood. Sometimes love doesn't arrive on schedule. Sometimes it comes dressed in danger and carried by two 6-year-olds in navy suits. Sometimes it asks you to wait through fear and uncertainty and weeks of not knowing. And sometimes, just sometimes, it shows up exactly when it's supposed to. Not late. Just perfectly, impossibly on time. 1 year later, I stood at the edge of the Rosewood Park garden, my heart thundering beneath layers of silk and lace. The ceremony was small, intimate by design. Just the people who mattered. Iris dabbed at her eyes, near the front row. Marcus stood stoic, but suspiciously misty-eyed beside the arbor. A handful of Willie's new business associates, legitimate ones, running the architectural firm he'd built from nothing, sat among my friends from the shelter. But I barely saw them, because two 6-year-old boys, now 7, though they'd always be my little boys, stood on either side of me in matching navy suits, each holding one of my hands. Ready, Miss Geneva? Gavin asked, though he'd started calling me Mom 3 months ago when I wasn't paying attention. Almost, Grant added, squeezing my fingers. But it's okay to be nervous. Daddy says being nervous just means something really matters. I looked down at them, these extraordinary children who'd orchestrated this entire journey with nothing but love and stubborn hope. My throat tightened with emotion. I'm not nervous, I whispered.
I'm grateful.
For what? Gavin tilted his head. For 2 brave boys who refused to let their father be alone. For a blind date I thought was a disaster, but turned out to be destiny. Grant's smile was radiant. Daddy says you're our destiny, too. The music shifted, a simple acoustic guitar playing softly. Our cue. But before we moved, Grant pulled something from his pocket. A single white rose, perfect and pristine. "We wanted to do something first," he said quietly. Gavin took the rose and walked to the front row where an empty chair sat beside Iris, draped in cream fabric, a framed photograph resting on its seat. Elena Cortez smiled from the picture, her eyes kind, her expression warm. Gavin placed the white rose across the frame with careful reverence. "For Mommy," he whispered, "so she knows we're okay. That Daddy's happy again." He returned to my side, his small face serious but peaceful. "Now we're ready." We walked down the aisle together, not me being given away, but the three of us moving as a unit, a family already formed, now being formally recognized. Every eye was on us, but I only saw one person. Willie stood beneath the flower-wrapped arbor, and the sight of him stole my breath. He wore a charcoal suit, perfectly tailored, elegant, but his face was what undid me. His eyes were bright with unshed tears, his expression open and vulnerable in a way that still surprised me. This man who'd spent so long hiding behind masks now wore his heart plainly for everyone to see. When we reached the arbor, Gavin and Grant each kissed my cheek before moving to stand beside their father. Willie's hands found mine, warm and steady, and for a moment we just looked at each other, remembering everything that had brought us here. The officiant spoke, but the words washed over me in a gentle blur. I was too focused on Willie's face, on the way his thumb traced circles on my wrist, on the boys standing beside us radiating pure joy. Then it was time for vows. Willie cleared his throat, his voice surprisingly steady. "Geneva, a year ago I was convinced I was beyond saving. That I was defined by my worst choices, trapped by circumstances I couldn't escape. I'd forgotten what it felt like to hope for something better." His grip on my hands tightened. "Then two stubborn boys decided their father deserved happiness, and they found you. And you," his voice cracked slightly. "You didn't run when you saw who I really was. You didn't try to fix me or save me. You just stood beside me and said, 'Show me the rest.'" Tears streamed freely down my face now. "You didn't save a monster, Geneva," Willie continued, his own eyes glistening. "You showed him he was still a man capable of change, worthy of love, deserving of second chances. You gave me back my humanity when I thought I'd lost it forever." He paused, glancing at his sons, then back at me. "I promise to spend every day proving you didn't make a mistake. I promise to be the father these boys deserve and the husband you can be proud of. I promise to choose light over darkness, even when darkness feels easier. And I promise that no matter what shadows from my past try to find us, I will protect this family, this beautiful, impossible family, with everything I am." I couldn't speak for a moment, emotion overwhelming me. Then I found my voice. "Willie, you once warned me that kindness could get me hurt around you. But what you didn't understand then, what I hope you understand now, is that loving you never felt like danger. It felt like coming home." His breath caught. "You say I showed you that you were still a man, but you showed me something too. You showed me that love isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about finding someone worth fighting for, worth waiting for, worth believing in even when the world says you shouldn't." I squeezed his hands. "I promise to stand beside you through whatever comes. I promise to love these boys as my own because they already are. I promise to remind you every day that you're more than your past, that redemption isn't something you earn, but something you choose. And I promise that when you forget these things, because sometimes you will, I'll be here to show you again." The officiant pronounced us married, and Willie pulled me into a kiss that was tender and fierce and full of promise. Around us, applause erupted. The twins cheered. Someone, probably Iris, sobbed openly. When we finally broke apart, Gavin and Grant launched themselves at us, and we became a laughing, crying tangle of family. Later, after the dinner and the dancing and the celebrating, the four of us found ourselves back at that bench. The same weathered park bench where two small boys had appeared out of nowhere and changed everything. The evening sun painted everything golden. Gavin and Grant chased each other around the nearby trees, their laughter ringing clear and pure. Willie sat beside me, our hands intertwined, his wedding band catching the light. "Do you ever think about that first night?" I asked softly. "When you showed up and found your sons conspiring with a stranger?" Willie smiled, that full, genuine smile I'd fallen in love with. I think about how close I came to walking away, to ending it before it began, because I was too afraid to hope. "What stopped you?"
Them.
He nodded toward the twins. The look on their faces when they saw us together. Like they knew something I didn't, that sometimes the things that scare us most are the things we need most. I leaned my head on his shoulder, watching our boys play. They were right. They usually are. Terrifying, really, how wise they've become. They learned from the best. Willie turned to face me, his expression serious. "I'm still going to have hard days, Geneva. Moments when the past tries to pull me back. When I doubt whether I deserve this. I know." I cupped his face in my hands. "And I'll be right here, reminding you who you are. Who we are." He kissed my forehead, soft and reverent. "How did I get this lucky?" "You didn't get lucky," I whispered. "You got two sons who loved you enough to fight for your happiness. You got a second chance because you were brave enough to take it. And you got me." I smiled. "Well, you got me because I'm apparently terrible at following warnings." His laugh was warm and free, the sound of a man who'd finally learned to let himself be happy. Gavin and Grant ran back to us, breathless and beaming. "Can we come here every week?" Grant asked. "Like a tradition?" "This is our special place," Gavin added. "Where our family started." Willie pulled both boys onto the bench between us, and we sat there as the sun set over Rosewood Park, for people who'd found each other through danger and determination, through chaos and courage, through love that refused to be reasonable or safe or sensible. As darkness fell softly around us, I thought about everything that had led to this moment. The anonymous phone calls and the gunfire. The fear and the waiting. The choice to stay when leaving would have been easier. And I realized something with perfect clarity. Sometimes love doesn't arrive on time. Sometimes it arrives 37 minutes late, carried by two small boys in navy suits who refuse to let their father stay in the dark. Sometimes love asks you to be brave when you want to be cautious, to hope when logic says you shouldn't, to believe that people can change, that second chances are real, that happily ever after exists even in the most unlikely places. Sometimes love looks like danger from the outside, but from the inside, from here, sitting on a park bench with my husband and our boys. From here, love looks exactly like home. And we were never late again.